Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1915B, and today's date is July 12th, 2019, and the title of the episode is Deep State Baited, the Island is the Key, Nothing Can Stop What Is Coming. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the Deep State has been baited by Q, the Patriots, for a very long time now. Why? Because they're leading the deep state and exposing all of them for what they really are and what their plan really was. And what's very interesting is they're following along and going right after that bait without question. And they're doing exactly what the Patriots want. And we can see this from all the players, and we'll be discussing that in just a moment. But first, we know that Trump, he decided he wasn't going to give his tax returns. Now, there is no law. He doesn't have to do it. But everybody wants to see his tax returns because since he didn't give it, he must be hiding something. And I've said this in the past. This was the Patriots' plan. I do believe that everything that we see, they have planned out to make sure the deep state goes in a certain direction on purpose. And Trump just didn't withhold his taxes just to withhold them. It was part of the plan. Now, what's very interesting is since there was no law about giving your taxes, states are now creating laws. New York created a law. Now California is creating a law. They passed legislation mandating that all presidential and state gubernatorial candidates release their tax information in order to appear on that state's ballot. Now, the bill SB 27 passed with 57 to 17, and the legislation will require candidates to share income tax returns for the previous 5 taxable years with the California state government. That information will then be available to voters on the state's Secretary of State website. Lawmakers also included an urgency clause in the legislation, meaning it would take effect immediately and force the candidates running for president in 2020 to share their financial disclosures. The legislation will be heard in the California State Senate this week and sent to Governor Gavin Newsom if approved. Now, of course, we know that he's going to sign off on this. Now, this is very interesting, and I've said this in the past. Trump, the Patriots, they've been planning for this. You don't think that Trump and the Patriots made sure that everything was perfectly clean first before they decided to choose Trump to become president. They went through everything. Yes, his entire tax return. And the deep state, the Dems, they've been pushing this like there's something there. They just don't know what it is. And if they just can get the tax returns, everything will come clear. And this is going to turn out to be another nothing burger. But what he's doing right now, and the Patriots are doing, they're setting this up to say, you know what? Now, let's take a look at everyone else's tax returns. And I think they should take this a step further. They should also look into the foundation's tax returns and combine them all and really go over it. And I believe this is a setup by Trump and the Patriots. Now, Barr is moving forward with the investigations, and we're going to be hearing a lot of news coming out very, very soon. Paul Sperry tweeted out the following. Barr will declassify a 2012 Obama admin request to FISA court to expand the FBI's ability to exchange information on surveilled Americans with foreign governments, along with redacted portions of a 2017 FISA court opinion scolding FBI for failing to protect U.S. citizens. Paul Sperry also tweeted out, Barr will also seek to declassify an Obama-era interagency memorandum of understanding signed by the FBI and CIA, enabling outside contractors, including possibly Fusion GPS, to gain improper access to raw FISA data from November 2015 to April 2016. And Barr is just beginning to break down everything that the Obama administration has done. And once all of this comes out with the D-Class OIG report and all these investigations, the deep state, they are going to be in deep trouble. I mean, look what's happening with Flynn right now. Their entire case is completely falling apart. Why do I say this? Well, Michael Flynn's defense attorney, Sidney Powell, blasted the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court for approving a warrant she said is based on flimsy evidence presented, a dossier cobbled together by an ex-British spy. She said it was beyond an outrage the court would approve a warrant to spy on Trump campaign figure Carter Page and others based on the so-called Steele dossier, a collection of unverified, salacious rumors compiled by former British spy Christopher Steele. You couldn't get a search warrant for a known crack house down the street on the basis of information like that, but the FISA court used it to obtain the most intrusive information against at least 4 people, she said. Now, she is taking this to the source, and she is going to blow this thing wide open, and Flynn is going to be set free. Now, of course, the deep state, they're just not going to give. They're going to continually fight back as hard as they possibly can. Remember, the deep state is still there. They're just not gone. They're still fighting. And they're still going to try to get Flynn, because if Flynn is set free and everything completely falls apart with this whole Russian collusion story, that the Russians hacked the DNC, the Russians did this with Flynn, the Russians did that, guess what? Everything comes tumbling down. And guess what's happening right now? It is all falling apart. Now, very interestingly, Senator Dianne Feinstein, she is weighing in on the character of a man that Trump appointed to fill a seat on the Ninth Circuit Court. And it seems Feinstein's judgment really hasn't improved whatsoever. Remember, she had an individual that was selling secrets to the Chinese. Well, the individual that she's talking about, this new individual that Trump is going to appoint to fill a seat in the Ninth Circuit Court, this individual was Dianne Feinstein's intern, Dan Bress. I mean, think about this for a second. She's going after an individual that was working for her. So if true, the omission of that tidbit would mean Feinstein either intentionally withheld her personal connection with Bress, or she's simply unaware she once trusted him with her office's important work. Very interesting. Now, the deep state, the Dems, they are revealing more and more of their plan every single day. The patriots are letting them tell the world what they plan to do. Remember, why interfere with an enemy while they're destroying themselves? First, let's start with Senator Elizabeth Warren. Senator Elizabeth Warren released a sweeping immigration plan called a Fair and Welcoming Immigration System that would increase the number of refugees admissions by almost 800% from 2018. Warren said she would increase the admissions of migrant refugees to 175,000 per year, with a ceiling of 125,000 in her first year in the White House. And that's an 800% increase over the roughly 22,000 admitted in the year 2018. So, first of all, she's saying, yeah, let's let them all in. We don't care. Doesn't make a difference. Pelosi just let out and told the American people exactly what they plan to do and what they still want to do. While explaining why she will not allow Congress to debate, change, or modify U.S. immigration laws, Pelosi outlines how the United States is part of a global society, without borders and without any sovereign right to impede the human society from entering our nation. Therefore, according to her outlook and worldview, U.S. politicians have no right to stop any migration movement. Keep this in mind as we approach the 2020 election. The Speaker of the House is essentially saying, openly, publicly, and without any reservation or concern, the United States of America is no longer a sovereign nation, and it has open borders. Think about that. Remember their plan. A one world government. Allow everyone in. They were doing this in Europe. Everyone blended. This was part of their plan. And now they're letting America know their plan. Remember, Nancy was out there telling those individuals in this country illegally how to get around ICE. You know who else is doing this? AOC and Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton tweeted out the following, and it was in Spanish, but let me give you the English version of it. What to do if ICE comes to your doors. Do not open doors. ICE cannot come in without a signed warrant by a criminal court judge. They can only come in if you let them. Remain silent. ICE can use anything you say against you in your immigration case, so claim your right to remain silent. Do not sign. Do not sign anything ICE gives you without talking to an attorney. Report and record. Take a picture or video unless you're on federal government property. Take notes of badge numbers, number of agents, type, time, type of car, exactly what happened. Fight back, get a trustworthy attorney, and explore all options to fight your case. If detained, you can be able to get bail. Don't give up hope. Well, how is this not obstruction of justice? Aren't we a nation of laws? Isn't she going against the United States government right now and what the president is ordering? Well, Representative Gooden accused Pelosi and now Clinton of sedition, suggesting that people that break the law in this country, it is sedition. And I think we're going down a very difficult path that we, and I say we to Representative Nancy and the gang, that we cannot turn back on. What is sedition? Conduct or language inciting rebellion against the authority of a state. Insurrection, rebellion. A factious commotion in a state. The stirring up of such a commotion, incitement of discontent against the government, and disturbance of public tranquility, as by inflammatory speeches or writings, or acts of language tending to breach of public order, as to stir up a sedition, a speech or pamphlet abounding in sedition. Let's go back to post 2804. And here, it's an Q at this time gives us post 2803. Look for placeholders, updates, Patriots fight. Indictments, arrests, declass will force worldwide coverage. Leaks, bribery, collusion, media will force resignations with follow-up criminal prosecution. Then Q says, first placeholders, OIG report, declass, other release facts, RE 18 U.S. Code, Chapter 115, treason, sedition, and subversive activities, Q. Let's move on to the whole entire census battle. Now, Trump announced that he will be taking executive action to direct the Department of Commerce to obtain an estimate of U.S. citizens from records provided by federal government agencies. He said, I hereby ordering every department and agency in the federal government to provide the Department of Commerce with all the requested records regarding the number of citizens and non-citizens in our country. The president stated in the Rose Garden of the White House with Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross and Attorney General William Barr by his side, they must furnish all legally accessible records in their possession immediately. We will utilize these vast federal database to gain a full, complete, and accurate count of the non-citizen population. We will leave no stone unturned. Now, what's very interesting is they're going to be asking all governmental departments and all those people that applied for welfare and other things. I'm wondering if there's a citizenship question on all these things, and they're going to combine all of this information to get a read on who's a citizen and who's not a citizen without even asking them, because it looks like they've already answered this question. And most likely, before Trump and the Patriots went in this direction, they already checked it out, and they have a lot of the data. Now, as we know, Trump gathered conservative groups at the White House for a summit on social media bias and censorship. And Republican Senator and outspoken critic of social media bias, Josh Hawley, was also at the White House. The Gateway pundit Jim Hoft attended the White House, and many other people were at the White House. The president announced his administration will be exploring regulatory solutions to address the shadow banning and banning of conservatives. Today, He said, I am directing my administration to explore all regulatory and legislative solutions to protect free speech and the free speech rights of all Americans. We hope to see transparency, more accountability, and more freedom. Trump made it clear he wants free speech for all Americans, including leftists. He said, it doesn't matter what side you're on. You deserve to be heard. Yes, it's the rights of the people. It doesn't matter if you're on the left, you're on the right, down the center, black, white, Asian. It doesn't make a difference. We all have the same right. And these big tech companies shouldn't be choosing and saying, okay, we'll allow this because we agree. We won't allow this because we disagree. Well, then they're a publisher and they're not a public utility. And they could be liable then. But they're trying to play both sides here. Trump tweeted out the following. Each of you is fulfilling a vital role in our nation. You are challenging the media gatekeepers and the corporate censors to bring the facts straight to the American people. Together, you reach more people than any television broadcast by far. And this is why the big tech companies, the mainstream media, this is why they're nervous and afraid. Because they're losing people, and the alternative media, they are gaining people. And they're losing the narrative. And out of fear to control the narrative, what do? They censor. They block. Think about governments in the past. Think about those people who didn't want any other information getting out except their narrative. They burned books. They put people in jail. They blocked people from hearing it. They killed individuals. The same thing is happening now. It's just on a different scale. And they're able to do it where people don't notice things because they just flip a switch. I don't mean a real switch. And they can ban someone by not showing it in their feed. They can down a channel and use a different reason of why they're doing it. And they've been doing this for a very long time. And this is why Trump is now pushing to have free speech for everyone. Now, it looks like the deep state, they're pushing their agenda with Iran. And when you see this buildup where there's a tanker and the UK is getting involved and they're saying that Iran came in and they attacked a tanker and the UK, they're going to push their agenda and go after Iran. Remember, when you see this type of buildup, that means the New Deal or the peace plan is getting closer and closer and closer. We saw this with North Korea. We are now seeing it with Iran. There's not going to be a war. Yes, the deep state is trying to start something, but it will not work. It has already failed. They just don't know it yet. There's already a deal. It'll be coming out. This is why we have the build-up right now. And all of a sudden, Trump is going to announce we have a new deal with Iran. Remember, Europe didn't step up. And everything that Obama, Kerry tried to do, it has completely failed. Now let's get into some of Q's posts here. Let's go back to post 3414. And this post says, all Anons can fully appreciate the continued validation confirmation through covert series of mathematical impossible coincidences means in order to maintain structural integrity. And then it said, wheels up in brackets in bold and Q. And that's the part I want to focus on, wheels up, because this shows up in Q's post later on. So wheels up is actually an airliner. It's a private airline company. And guess who uses this airline? Clinton and many others. And he flies this airline. And this is Wheels Up, up the way you fly. And this is a revolutionary membership-based private aviation company that reduces the upfront cost to fly privately while providing an unrivaled lifestyle platform. Now, is Q telling us, Wheels Up, and that we should be looking at this airline, looking at the flight logs? Well, I believe so, because Q mentions this in later posts. We'll be getting into that in just a minute. Let's move on to post 3415. Q gives us a link to Life News, and it says, court rules President Trump can defund Planned Parenthood, will cut almost $60 million in taxpayer funding. Let me read a little part of this article here. A federal appeals court today ruled President Donald Trump can partially defund Planned Parenthood while the abortion business lawsuit against his administration new rules move forward. As Life News reported in March, the Trump administration finalized an administrative rule that would partially defund the Planned Parenthood abortion business and deprive it of as much as $60 million in taxpayer dollars. The abortion chain receives about $50 million to $60 million in Title X funds annually, but that could change now that the new rules are being implemented. The administration changes to Title X family planning grants have angered the abortion chain Planned Parenthood, prompting a lawsuit, but they provide hope for life-affirming pregnancy centers, which can now compete with the abortion giant for the federal funds. Title X funds are supposed to be used to help low-income women and men receive birth control, cancer screening, and other health care services. While the tax money cannot be used to pay for abortions, it indirectly funds Planned Parenthood's vast abortion business. Last month, a 3-judge panel from the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals granted the Trump administration request to lift national injunctions ordered by lower federal courts in Oregon and Washington state, as well as statewide injunction in California. The panel said that Trump administration will likely prevail in the legal battle over the Title X family planning program, since similar Reagan-era rules were upheld by the Supreme Court almost 30 years ago. Q says, and this is in brackets all caps, Planned Parenthood news, more coming. Now, before we start the next post, let me give a little definition of a few terms so we can understand what's going on here. Bread on the 8chan board means the latest discussion thread on a particular topic. Baker, this is the anon who creates the new bread. Dough, this is the updated information discovered by anons that need to be put into the next bread. New fag, a beginner to Chan culture. Shill, someone who derails or distracts a discussion, often because they're paid to do so. Now, the next Q post is responding to the board owner and other anons. For those who do not follow the boards, they've been under attack by shills. This has increased in the last couple of weeks. And FastJack wanted to change the format. Q said bread baking should not be changed and went against what they wanted to do here. And that's what this post is really about. Let's go into post 3417. Q gives us a post from 1368, and this is Allison Mack, NXIVM, and New York Attorney General Schneiderman connection. And it says Allison Mack, this is in brackets and bolding all caps, NXIVM arrested date. When does a bird sing? Schneiderman resigns date. Coincidence, eyes wide open. Who will be next? Watch New York City, watch California. Post 1203. Mac is naming names. And by the way, this is from April 20th, 2018. So Mac is naming names. Big names in Hollywood, government, local, federal, proof. So Allison Mack was arrested April 20th, 2018. Schneiderman resigned May 8th, 2018. When do birds sing? In the spring. So she's been singing and naming names. Eyes Wide Open is a movie that showed sex cults and sex rings. And Q is telling us once again, watch New York City and California. Let's move into the Q post here. Gave us a Twitter account. This is Kim Sachs 1. Tonight on Ingram, Angle interview with Alan Dershowitz. He says he was introduced to Epstein by LDR. That is Linda Rothschild. Q says, how does LDR connect to Bronfman's Find the Bridge? Think Company. How is Bronfman connected with NXIVM? Go backwards. NXIVM, pointing with an arrow, who pleaded guilty. Gave us a New York Times article. Claire Bronfman pleads guilty in NXIVM sex cult case, leaving leader to stand trial alone. The Seagram's liquor heiress was one of the 2 women who pleaded guilty on Friday in a racketeering case against the cult-like group that branded members. Allison Mack, ? When does a bird sing? Spring. Watch New York City with a lot of arrows pointing to New York City. News unlocks 5x5. Now this is from the 8chan boards. from an Anon. Founded in 1997 as Virchow Kraus Management, Bronfman Rothschild was acquired by the Bronfman and E.L. Rothschild family in 2015. Since then, the firm has grown in size to now offer 10 locations throughout the East Coast and Midwest, serving individuals, institutional, and retirement plan clients. In 2019, Bronfman Rothschild was acquired by Sontag Advisory, a subsidiary of NFP Corp., in order to fully integrate operations. The unified firm will offer 12 U.S. locations and 50-plus financial advisors working with clients throughout the United States. While both firms will continue to operate independently in the month ahead, a new brand strategy uniting both firms will be announced near the end of 2019. So Think Company, they're merging together, both of these families, basically. Post 3418. Q says, sheep no more, Q. Post 1368, once again. Post 1203, once again. And down below, it says the following. What city was Epstein arrested in? Well, on July 6, 2019, Epstein was arrested at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, which is very close to New York, on sex trafficking charges of minors in Florida and New York. Q says, New York City, ? 5x5, watch California. Now, Rachel Chandler has been photographed at the New York Standard Hotel, connected to California Standard Hotel, and the Standard Hotel was recently in the news. So something's going to break, and it looks like it has to do with both of these, and maybe even Rachel Chandler. So again, let's watch the news for Rachel Chandler. Now, very interestingly, Jeffrey Epstein, in a court filing, before he was arrested, he sold his Boeing 727-200 before he was arrested. So did someone tip him off to get rid of the jet? In the footnote in the court ruling, it reads as follows. Mr. Epstein owns one private jet. He sold the other jet in June 2019, placing the sale just weeks before the July 6 arrest upon the return from Paris in his Gulfstream G550. So it looks like Jeffrey Epstein unloaded his aircraft, which he reportedly had group sex with young girls in there. And it looks like he did this right before the hammer came down. Now, it looks like there are many other individuals that are coming forward. Dozens of new Epstein abuse victims have now come forward, and they're pointing the finger and telling their stories. Another strange thing is that Bill Clinton continually gets caught up in his lies that have to do with Epstein. In Bill Clinton's statement Monday, he claimed he knows nothing about terrible crimes Jeffrey Epstein pleaded guilty to in Florida. Clinton admitted to taking a total of 4 trips on Epstein airplane and also admitted to visiting Epstein's apartment in New York. Well, this has already been debunked. We know that he's taken like 26 or 27 times, and he flew on the plane that had underage girls. Now, he said he flew with Epstein because he was working on things that had to do with the Clinton Foundation. But Bill Clinton could not have flown with Epstein to perform work for the Clinton Foundation in 2002 because the foundation was not authorized for foreign work at the time, and the former president was not an officer, trustee, or employee of the foundation at that time. When you look at the application for a federal tax exemption for the main foundation, it was signed December 23rd, 1997. And the application specifically states in an addendum that all work will be carried out from within a park to be established by the city of Little Rock for a presidential center. In addition, it does not mark the activity code for U.S. Foundation operating internationally. So it looks like Clinton is getting caught up in his lies. Even though they're trying to scrub everything, information is coming out. Now, it's also reported that Epstein hired private investigators to intimidate and stalk his victims. I mean, this is getting crazier and crazier as we keep moving forward and we keep digging here. Let's move on to post 3419. Q gives us a link to NBC New York, and it says R. Kelly, arrested in Chicago on federal child pornography charges, faces New York City indictment. So the 52-year-old has been the subject of different sexual abuse allegations for nearly 2 decades, with some of the alleged acts dating back to 1998. Back in February, Kelly was charged with aggravated sexual abuse involving 4 women, 3 of whom were minors when the alleged abuse occurred. He pleaded not guilty and was released from Chicago's Cook County Jail after posting bail. A jury in 2008 acquitted Kelly of child pornography charges stemming from a video showing him having sex with a girl as young as 13. Prosecutors claimed at the time Kelly faced 15 years in prison for that charge, but the young woman in that claim denied it was her and did not testify. Let's move on to post 3420. Q gives us post 3414, which says, only Anons can fully appreciate the continued validations, confirmations through covert series of mathematically impossible coincidences means in order to maintain structural integrity. This is wheels up again in brackets, and gave us a Twitter link to John Jam 02545-194, and it says Trump just retweeted an account whose name is Save the Littles. Their cover photo is of 2 children from an interview taking about secret pedo and human sacrifice rings being exposed, dark to light. Q says, now what are the odds of that? Q. Post 3421. Q gives us a post back from February 22nd, 2019, which is 2874. Gave us back then a Twitter link, and it says, how do you fill your admin if majority of those in politics are corrupt, draining the swamp? In the post, Q also gives us a link to Fox News. Now, this is a story about Labor Secretary Acosta, who announced he'll be stepping down. Remember, he had this whole plea deal? And Q is saying, how do you fill your admin if majority of those in politics are corrupt? Remember, Acosta was instructed to push this deal and don't pursue anything else because Epstein is part of the intelligence apparatus. And again, that means Acosta is corrupt because he didn't do the right thing. Let's move on to post 3422. Gave us a link to New York Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. Now, this is in kill brackets and all bold, and this was founded in 1875. The New York Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children is the first child protection agency in the world. The NYSPCC founders wrote the basic tenets of child protection laws in the United States. Today, the NYSPCC remains dedicated to reducing the incidences and impacts of child abuse and neglect through prevention programs that improve the safety of children and intervention programs that help children and families to heal. Over the past 144 years, the agency has served more than 2 million children. Now, this is in kill brackets, and it is very strange that they use the word served. I mean, the agency helped more than 2 million children, I think would be a little bit better, but they served them. Let's move on to post 3423. Now, Q says, in brackets, bold, wheels up. Flight logs, this is in brackets and bold and caps, class 1 to 99, under investigation by FBI, Department of Justice. So are they looking at the flight logs in the investigation of this company called Wheels Up? I believe that's what Q is telling us. Let's move on to post 3424. Brackets, bold caps, Mueller hearing delayed. What are the odds of that? Remember, Mueller was supposed to testify July 17th. Q, just yesterday, told us that the stealth bomber, A.G. Barr, with the number 1 and 7, that he is the stealth bomber. And now, Mueller's testimony is delayed. Did Q put this out there to make them think something big was going to happen, and they decided to move the date? It seems like, yeah, this is what happened. A little bit of disinformation to see how the deep state would react. And actually, they were baited and they fell for it. Post 3425 gave us a Twitter link to CBS, and this is Trump speaking to news reporters. And he said, Jeffrey Epstein was not somebody that I respected. Take a listen to what Trump says.
I was not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein, and you watched people yesterday saying that I threw him out of a club. I didn't want anything to do with him. That was many, many years ago. It shows you one thing, that I have good taste, okay? Now, other people, they went all over with him. They went to his island. They went all over the place. He was very well known in Palm Beach. His island, whatever his island was, wherever it is, I was never there. Find out the people that went to the island. But Jeffrey Epstein was not somebody that I respected. I threw him out. In fact, I think the great James Patterson, who's a member of Mar-a-Lago, made a statement yesterday that many years ago I threw him out. I'm not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein.
Now, in this post, Q says, and this is all caps and quotation marks, find out the people that went to that island. POTUS. Anons, no. Remember, the people that went to the islands brought their phones to the island. The intelligence organizations are hooked into the phones. There's also closed-circuit TV on the island. We know that these individuals on the flight log, they went to the island. They've been filmed. There's recordings. And there's evidence. That means the Patriots have everything. All of this is going to be used against them. Trump is saying, find out the people that went to the island. That's where you need to start. Who are these people? He said he's never been to the island. He's not on the flight logs. He kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. He doesn't like Epstein. His instincts were right back then, and they're right today. So the island is the key. Post 3426. Twitter link to Political Wire. And it says, how QAnon makes people miserable. And this is a little post here. And it reads, it's near impossible to summarize the entire QAnon conspiracy theory, as it's fluid and ever-changing. The nuts and bolts are that a secret government insider, Q, has taken to the internal form 8chan of all places to drop clues, and how President Trump is taking down the deep state. The conspiracy takes some twists and turns into the occult, an ever-present cabal of pedophiles, possible executions, and the idea JFK Jr. may have been faked his own death and is cosplaying as an old guy who goes to Trump rallies. Well, that's not true whatsoever. But again, what they're trying to do is they're trying to throw everyone off of what Q is doing. Why would they go to all this trouble if Q is a LARP? Q says, try harder. Nothing can stop what is coming. Nothing. Q. And Q is right. Look at all these proofs. It's mathematically completely impossible with all of this. And everything that Q has been talking about in the past has come true in the future. Forget about time. And remember, Q cannot give us classified information. So Q does it in a roundabout way so they don't get in trouble. And they allow Anons to do the research to come up with the information. This has all been planned for. And this is why it has grown. The deep state is in trouble now. The deep state, they are actually looking at the boards and changing their plans according to what Q does. Think about that for a second. That was a little test right there, because they were planning on everything happening on the 17th. Q puts out a simple post saying 17 AG Barr stealth bomber, and they moved the date, which means the Patriots are in control of it all, pushing the deep state a little to the left, a little to the right. This is what we want you to do. And guess what? They're falling for it every single time. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.